Good afternoon. Welcome to our panel discussing innovative partnerships. I know that's not the flashy title they gave it, but that's actually what this is about. I'm going to invite my wonderful co-panelists to introduce themselves. We'll start here. Ben?
Hi, Ben Nelson. I'm the founder of Minerva, both the nonprofit Minerva University as well as the Minerva Project, which helps universities, high schools, and continuing education organizations to transform how they teach to recenter their education on wisdom as opposed to transmission of knowledge.
All right, and Paul?
That was pretty wonderful. I am Paul Friedman, and notwithstanding what it says in the guides, I'm the president of Learning Marketplace at Guild Education, not the president of Learning Marketplace, which is not a company. Guild Education partners with the largest and most innovative employers in the United States, and then the most innovative universities, and essentially convinces large employers that it makes sense, that there's a meaningful return on investment if they invest in their employees' education. Recently announced a partnership with Target that President Sorrell is part of, where Target is providing a debt-free college education to all of their 300,000 employees.
All right, and my name is Michael Sorell. I am the president of Paul Quinn College. And the reason I'm here today is because we are partners with both of these wonderful institutions. And one of the things that we think is interesting, that I think is interesting, that perhaps we should start this off with, and it's a question I'll pose to both of you, is just what do you look for in your partners?
Well, that's easy. And actually, the COVID times have been illustrative because, you know, you and I have talked about COVID before it was fashionable. and Michael is one of the true visionaries, not just in education, but in leadership overall, in the sense that he was thinking about what to do about COVID in January of 2020. And I was witness to it firsthand. And if any of you said that you were thinking about it, you're lying, because nobody was talking about it at that time. And the reality is that visionary leadership is what is required to transform an institution. There's no way around it. And the COVID moment has given institutions two factors that enable visionary leaders to actually translate that vision into action. The first is a broad-based acceptance that technology can play a role in education, where 2 years ago, there was an enormous amount of principled opposition to the idea. Whereas now, most faculty members, especially in higher education institutions, kind of realize, technology can actually make my life a little bit better. But the second moment is that there has been an emperor has no clothes instance during COVID, because beamed into practically every living room or dining room in the world was the lack of education that institutions traditionally provide to their learners, and that parents saw. And the forward-thinking leaders will say, oh, you know, now this year have the highest applicants I've ever had, the most demand for my programs I've ever seen, and if I don't fundamentally transform, then that these indicators, which are false indicators, are eventually going to bury me. Eventually, I will be disrupted. And that's true of visionary leaders top to bottom. So for us, that's who we partner with. We partner with institutions that are led by individuals who are going to do what it takes to fundamentally reform what they do.
And Paul, your Guild's whole business model is based on identifying partners that are consistent with your beliefs, with your vision. Talk a little bit about that and how that works.
Yeah, so we appreciate visionary leadership. It's not all we look for. What we're looking for is for the institutions that are the best in the world at serving working adult learners. And we look for institutions that have that as part of their mission, have that as part of their belief system, are investing behind it. There are 42 200 accredited universities in the United States. There's another 3,500 non-traditional providers, boot camps that we've identified. Guild wants to work with the top 1, maybe 2% of those. And as we expand the learner population that we serve, and between the 2 partnerships that we announced just in the last couple weeks with Walmart and Target, it's 1.5 million learners who have debt-free education between those 2 partnerships, which is roughly the population of Phoenix. There's a lot of diversity within that population group. So we can't partner with one institution solely. We have to partner with institutions that represent the diversity of our learner populations, who are best in the world at their discipline, best in the world at the population that they serve. And so we look for that. I think what's interesting in the Venn diagram between Minerva and Guild is that we are looking for an institution that is about the working adult learner. And Ben and Minerva has always been about the elite institution. And so the Venn diagram between those is an elite innovator. Which I think is probably the most radical thing that's happening in higher education, is that you had this years and years and years that everything was judged by kind of looking up Harvard's butt, and it was all about quality and all about kind of trying to get a little bit incrementally higher in the U.S. News and World Reports, and that now we have a set of innovative institutions who've created a new dimension to compete on, and that is who can be more innovative about serving the learners that they serve.
And I think that's one of the things that you're hearing here with both Ben and Paul is this idea and a willingness to look at the world differently, right? And I think at the core of identifying effective partnerships is this ability to see things that haven't existed before, and to be very honest about the need to invite others into those conversations. I mean, listen, when I started at Paul Quinn, we never would have been on this stage. We never would have been partners with these 2 amazing institutions. I mean, candidly, 15 years ago, we were a really, really bad institution by every metric. And when we started looking at this, we asked ourselves, what could we be great at doing, right? And what we realized was that there weren't institutions out there that were willing to solve the actual problems of everyday people that others looked past on their way to their everyday lives, right? So the communities that people would drive by and just say, oh, I don't know anyone who lives there. There are no restaurants for me to go there. There's no gentrification that's happening in that place now for me to visit. We looked at those places and said, what if you built an institution that would perpetually and perennially solve those types of problems? And so what it's allowed us to do is at every step of the way is to consistently innovate, because the problems innovate, they change. And as you solve one, you move on to another. And that's important. I mean, so, I remember the first time I came out to San Francisco and visited Minerva, because, I like to travel, and being a college president gives you this great excuse for just going to cool places, right? You just have to be able to justify, oh, Minerva's doing something cool. I'm going to go study it, right? Oh, it just happens to be in San Francisco, right? So, but what blew me away was listening to Ben's vision and listening to the goal, and then the conversations that he and I had going forward about how you could actually take what they were doing because of the technology and apply it to an entirely different set of people who could benefit from it, right? And then I remember the conversations that we had before you joined Guild, and and since Guild, about just there are all these people out here who are working that, listen, don't have the ability to go to school the way that people were treating adult learners. It left them with too much debt. It left them, and listen, let me say this. I went back, because I wanted to test sort of this theory. I went back and got a doctorate as a sitting college president, because I had no experience as a working adult, right? Like, I was very fortunate. My family did well. I got 3 degrees in 10 years and worked, because that's what you did to build your resume. And I wound up being president of a college where 85% of my students are on Pell Grants. Everyone's working. And I'm supposed to make decisions about their lives. And I go back to school, and what I realize is it sucks, right? Going to school full-time, working full-time, having a family, it is maddening. Like, you perpetually feel as if you're failing at everything. And that led me to understand how important it was to come up with different models for working adults. And, you know, here you have an amazing model, and here you have an amazing model. And I just think there are more amazing models out there, but people have to be willing to share, and they have to be willing to partner to create these models to move things forward.
Yeah, I think that like willingness to partner is a really important one. If you think about like the arc of higher education, sort of 30 years ago, higher education institutions used to be the most vertically integrated organizations that there were. Like they ran their own dining halls, they ran their own, restaurants. They just did everything. And one thing by one thing, they're sort of starting to, partner, outsource, work with organizations that.
Careful, outsource is a business
Yeah, I know
term.
that.
You'll get kicked out of the college community,
but-
right?
Partner, not outsource. take that back.
Those cafeteria partnerships,
Yeah,
deep,
exactly. Deep,
deep
meaningful,
philosophical alignment.
all sorts of conversations.
Refry the beans.
But
refry.
the arc has been, in increased willingness to find organizations that are excellent at what they do, that can augment and extend the institution, that can partner. And it went from very outside the core of the institution to now very much inside the core of the institution. A lot of the companies here that are getting a lot of recent attention and making news are partnering around the actual academic delivery. I mean, what you very much partner around the academic delivery. I think actually the Minerva model, because it enforces a really interesting pedagogy, is sort of doing more to get inside the core of the institution. I think that is a pretty interesting arc. I mean, I'm interested, from like the institution's perspective, how you go about deciding, which organizations to partner with, what part of what you were doing before are you going to work with another institution on, like where the line stops between what you want to do as an institution and what you would trust a partner to do.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I have a very simple philosophy on it. If someone else is better at it, let's go partner with them and become better at it, right? Because there is no room for foolish pride in other people's lives. I mean, so many schools for years just sat somewhere, and because they were too prideful to acknowledge that they weren't good enough in a particular thing, they fed their students a substandard experience. And all I care about is getting it right, Is getting it right. And, what I tell my staff all the time is, there's no permanent solution to a problem, right? So we're going to have to share. We're going to have to continuously look for ways to get better. I mean, we started out, it's funny when you said outsourcing. When I started at Paul Quinn, we outsourced everything because it was cheaper and because everybody else was better at stuff than we were. So as we got better, like we identified areas where I thought, this is where we're going to hang our hat. Mm-hmm. And then let's go get great at this. And all these other things, let's borrow someone else's greatness.
See, that's amazing because we all, as in when I wear my chancellor hat, when I think about our own university, the key thing we want to give our students is the ability to have a growth mindset. But the institutions themselves have as fixed of a mindset as you could imagine. Right, and what Paul Quinn has, and really what Michael brought to Paul Quinn, is a growth mindset that was institutional, right? And that's crucial, right? And we get into the heart of the academic enterprise because we have a curricular framework, a pedagogical methodology, a feedback system that enables universities to actually achieve the kinds of learning objectives they want. But if they don't have a growth mindset as to how to get there, they're going to be convinced, despite all of the evidence, all of the research, the decades of proof, that they can just do that by lecturing to their students. Doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think President Sorrell, you sort of touched on something that kind of a little bit of an aha moment for me is sort of actually looking at partnering with other organizations as a way to achieve excellence yourself. Learn from an organization externally. Not necessarily take it as a position of handing over the reins, but work with an institution, an outside institution that might have excellence in a certain area, so you can bring that excellence internally. And also, it's sort of interesting the way you were talking about allowing then to pick your spots where you want to go deep. and build the internal excellence and figure out what the organization needs to be and what you partner for.
No, I think as we look forward in higher education, the really fascinating part about all of this to me is there literally are 40 schools that spend an exorbitant amount of time and money trying to convince everyone that they're a top 20 school, right? But the majority of people in this country don't go to those schools. So the higher education enterprise is being driven by a bunch of people driving Porsches when everyone else are driving American-made cars. And it's warped, right? Because when I think about, like, when you go into these under-resourced communities and you talk about going to school and you talk about their futures, they don't need you to talk about the amazing lecturer who won't ever actually talk to them, right? They need to know that they're going to be an institution that actually cares about them, that will have the registrar's office stay open past 5 o'clock because you know what? Working people get off work at 5. So maybe you need to have hours that are different, but you don't make them feel like it's an anomaly. It's just part of what you do. Like, people want to be treated with respect. And I think it's the same way in partnerships.
Michael, can you talk a little bit about the purpose? You know, when we talked first about your goals for the Urban Scholars Program and what it means to have a reformat of higher ed, and because I think that's so important for folks to think about when a partnership, to get first and foremost to the core of what a university wants to accomplish, right, and then work backwards from there. So.
So the program that Ben is talking about, we partnered with Minerva to create an Urban Scholars Program. And it's a three-year pathway to a degree. But it's very, very focused, right? Like, our students are learning to solve effectively 3 problems. One of 3 problems. They can pick a particular course of action: social justice, healthcare, or wealth disparity. Right? Like, that's it. I mean, because at Paul Quinn, what we're trying to do is, like, we literally are trying to change the world. We're trying to end poverty, right? And those 3 areas are areas that really, really impact poverty. And so, you know, when we were working with them, you know, one of the reasons why we love Minerva is because they just look at the world. Ben and his team, they look at the world so differently. And it's, you know, he talks about growth mindset, but they are the embodiment of an educational growth mindset. And it's this idea that, first of all, it can be a global enterprise, and global in a way that's not just about finding people in another country who will pay full freight because you run out of people in this country to pay full freight, right? Because, I mean, no one wants to you all must have gone to schools that they charge people full freight from. I hit a nerve. I apologize for that, right? You know, if you didn't know that, yes.
We waited 19 minutes to start hitting nerve. So, I mean, there's going to be more. There's going to be more.
Well, I thought we were going to hit a nerve a few minutes ago when we were going to name the 20 institutions that shouldn't be in the top 40, but I digress.
Right. I let him off the hook with that one, right? But the reality of it is, you want it to be a global experience, but you want your students to be able to solve the problems that matter to them in their lives. And here's the other thing. People don't have 5 years, 6 years to spend in school, right? Like, they've got to get in and get out and get off to the rest of their lives. The only reason we think it's okay for people to spend longer in school is because the people making the decisions are economically in a position where they're comfortable. So they don't have to worry about that. But I promise you, if you are working shifts at Wendy's, and I'm not disparaging Wendy's at any, it's just the name that came to mind first, right?
You could do Chipotle or...
I'm not going to do Chipotle because they're partners, right? Like, Chipotle.
Oh, you're going to say bad thing? Yeah, no, go to Wendy's. Go to Wendy's.
Right. Chipotle is amazing. We love Chipotle. They are part of the Paul Quinn family, right? So, but like, if you're working the shift at a fast food restaurant, and you don't have the ability to do simple things simply. Do you really want to spend 6 years trying to fit your schedule into your shifts? Or do you want as short of a time as possible to maximize your bounce? You want to maximize your bounce. See, that's what the Urban Scholars Program understands. It's the first year, we're gonna push you to go to school. And then after that, we're gonna get you a job. And you're gonna work as part of our work program because we're an urban work college. We know people need to work and they need opportunities to improve their competitiveness in the marketplace. Because students from Pell Grant backgrounds don't have the same resources from relationship standpoints to get the internships that set the table. Right? I mean, because we know that. I mean, my first internship was with the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, and I was able to do it because my parents were able to subsidize me living in D.C. for a summer and not working. And that internship was literally like the bounce started there. And so, the program allows us to step forward, teach them things that they actually care about, get them out of school faster with real-world work experience, and also introduce them to people in their communities that are working on the issues that are important to them. I think that's what education should be doing more of.
And it's a trendsetter. I think that's the right. So since we first partnered with you on the Urban Scholars Program, we've worked with one of the top business schools in the world based in Barcelona, ESADE, to launch a triple bottom line business program that integrates work, so really a B Corp type work into the curriculum. We've just are launching in a couple of weeks a complete transformation of one of the 3 federal universities in the United Arab Emirates to incorporate work into the curriculum, full integrated learning. We're working on similar programs with a brand new university we're helping launch in Asia. And these are the kinds of things that are going to be pervasive. And by the way, a university, which is considered to be one of the top universities in the United States, is thinking about the same kind of integration of work and a kind of a Minerva pedagogy as a foundation for a brand new college that it's going to launch. And that takes leadership, but it comes from understanding purpose, understanding what you're trying to do with the students, and then it gives a model for other institutions to follow.
I just want to point out they're all copying Paul Quinn College, a historically black college in Dallas, Texas. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Paul?
I agree, they are. But no, I think that's actually one of the kind of cool things about innovative partnerships is it does take an institution that is willing to go stick their neck out a little bit, have conversations with faculty a little bit, maybe have some dialogues with your creditors a little bit, push the envelope of what's happened before, either pedagogically or sort of mission-wise. But once it happens, it ends up this happens a lot in higher education is that that model starts to get adopted, right? It was you've seen this in recently with the kind of huge rise in the number of short form either or postgraduate or undergraduate certificates, and it took a few institutions sort of experimenting, bringing programs online, not bringing programs within the formal container of a bachelor's degree or a graduate degree, and now once it starts to work, it starts to all institutions start to copy it. It starts to be easier to adopt the model. The energy that used to be about trying to be a little bit more elite starts to compete in other factors. And innovative institution sort of guide, innovative institution, innovative partnership starts to be a guiding light. And joking aside about imitation. I think it's great. I mean, it's expanding the impact. Your mission is about eradicating poverty. If there are other institutions around the world that are adopting what you're doing and doing it well and impacting students, that just that's echoes and broadens the mission.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think one of the other things about partnerships is you can't be selfish, right? Like you can't be selfish. I mean, yes, we are in a hyper-competitive industry, right? But as I like to tell my staff, we only need to find X number of students around the world to come to our school, right? It's not as if you need 10 million, right? We just need a certain amount, and we're fine.
Yeah, Southern New Hampshire is the only one looking for 10 million.
They're the only ones, right?
Western governors, as long as they try to steal from one another, then it's okay.
There's a few.
We need slightly less than the 10 million, right? But the point is, education should always be about the common good, right? And expanding the common good. And if we are institutions that are hoarding information, hoarding the ability to change others' lives just because it props us up, then we really can't be mad at the gridlock in Washington or the selfishness that we see in state legislatures, because all those people went to American colleges and universities, right? So if we're upset about where things are going, then we really need to examine the models which we are using to educate people, because they're producing this type of thing. And we have to be better. We have to be better.
I think we should ask the audience what they think.
So we have plenty of time for questions. Who would like to go first?
What does SACS DOC have to say about your change in your experience? Sure, it's consistently your mission, but what was their response to some of the things you're doing?
Oh, I have no idea. I never asked them. No, we're not accredited by SACS, right? So we listen, one of the things, if you're going to really innovate, you have to understand that you might walk to the beat of a different drummer. And there can be freedom in walking to the beat of a different drummer. And so we believe in rigorous evaluation by your peers, but we also believe in a different set of peers, right? I mean, I think SACS is wonderful. I think they do a great job for those types of institutions, but we do something a little different, and we're proud of it. It's the most honest response I can give you, right? Next question.
In advising on higher ed partnerships to some of my clients, I often find that there is this notion that we are a wisdom powerhouse on our own.
I'm going to give you the microphone, so.
Oh, sorry. No, it's okay. I can just speak here.
So I'll put my mask on. I won't give you any cooties. There you go. You're welcome.
I was saying that in advising my clients about higher ed partnerships, and seriously, there are so many opportunities where it would be so much simpler and faster to innovate with bringing in someone who's already figured it out. One of the biggest hurdles that I witness and have to work through is pushback from faculty, because their simple logic is, we teach this stuff, and somehow I can see the gap between being trained to teach something versus making it a part of the business operation or, university operation system. So how did you, work through some of that?
So we I have a slightly different view of the relationship with faculty and the institution, right? I love my faculty. I love my faculty because they are aligned with how we view the world, right? So we don't have tenure, because we don't understand tenure, right? I'm not interested. I understand the basis for tenure is academic freedom. Well, I don't tell my faculty what to teach, right? I would never dream of telling them what to teach. So otherwise, there's an economic relationship with an institution that faculty have. Like, this is about educating people to see the whole picture. So we're completely transparent there's no secrets. I walk everyone through the budget. I walk everyone through all the decisions. Everyone's welcome to come to all the meetings that I hold. I'll sit down with parents. I will walk anyone through every single decision we make at the institution, so all of us are informed and in this together. Truthfully, so many of the really good ideas that we've had have come from that collective thought. So our faculty actually likes the fact that they get to just teach. They don't have to worry about administrative stuff. They are happy and successful, and it works out beautifully. But I don't know why mastering one area of one subject matter means that you then get to decide the future of everything at the school. All of us have a shared interest in this. The students, their parents. Like, I am all about shared governance. I just think we need to include more people in the shared governance.
Yeah.
That's how we look at it.
And what I'm about to say, I say with a lot of love. My father was a faculty member at Berkeley. He was a physics professor, member in the National Academy. But man, faculty can be tough, and they can and talk about academic freedom. But academic freedom is about the freedom to research things that are unpopular, the freedom to teach things that are unpopular, to make sure that there's no, you can only teach what is right. It's not freedom to keep an institution from changing its ways or adapting to the times or paying attention to the students, right? That's not what it's intended to be. And the institutions who have gotten it right are ones who have brought faculty into the innovation conversation. That they've created an incentive structure in the institution where if you bring new ideas in teaching, if you bring new innovative pedagogical models, if you bring new business models, that gets you credit and gets you status the same as a great researcher. And the institutions that have done that create a really great innovation flywheel, because it's no longer the faculty being resistant to change, it's the faculty being part of the change process. And then you have, the whole army of innovators, because as obstinate as they can be, love you, Dad, they also tend to be very brilliant people. And if you get them thinking on the institution's behalf, it can change the whole model around.
At this,
Yeah,
Well, but see,
Well,
that's.
yeah.
You want to take that? I was just going to say. See,
I'll just
that
on that one.
that just enrages me, right? Because that's. Well, I don't go that far. Okay, right. I mean, my body translates it differently. I don't have hair. Okay, all right. So, but to me, that's coded language, right? Like, that's dog whistling, and what it's saying is you're not comfortable with who's coming through that door next. Yeah. All right? And I think you have to call people out on that. And to Paul's point about this, we make stars out of our folks that push the envelope. Right? Like, I mean, we've got this amazing business professor who, one of the reasons why she's so amazing is she runs her own incredibly successful State Farm agency. And just, as she got into this and as she has these amazing ideas and we gave her the runway to do the ideas, she did them. They were amazing. She did some more. And it's been incredible to watch the students rally around her, to watch the institution thrive off of that. All we ask is that you push the envelope, right? Like, go be out of the box and give us a chance to sing your praises, because I'm telling you right now, everyone is who they were in 7th grade, okay? So everyone, deep down inside, everyone is who they were at 13, 14 years old, right? They want to be stars, they want to be praised, they want to be popular, right? So we try and make everybody happy that way.
I do want to acknowledge that we would be remiss if, in our job here, talking about partnerships, if we didn't call out, which I think we all want to call out, but somehow it comes to me to be very inflammatory. The vast majority of organizations that are in the partnership business don't have anybody's interest at heart but their own. They don't have the student's interest at heart. They don't have the institution's interest at heart. I have a friend who is a dean of a professional school in a well-regarded university, not an elite, but a well-regarded university. And she inherited an OPM contract. This OPM contract takes 85% of tuition revenue to the OPM, and of the 15% that is remaining, her provost gets 75% and she gets 25% left over. 25% of 15%. Do the math. It's 3.75%. And on that 3.75%, she has to hire faculty, teach the students, give them advising, coaching, the whole thing. So if you think that that is a positive development for her school, it is not. It is bankrupting her school. And so there is pushback in this field because there are so many bad, and by bad I mean awful actors, right, that go into an institution, take the vast majority of the economics, and really contribute very little, and push to accept whatever student you want and graduate whatever student you want, effectively becoming diploma mills as opposed to actually doing the hard work of teaching the students, coaching them, providing them opportunity. That doesn't jive with so many of those other folks' business models. So we have to also acknowledge that, and when we engage with faculty, to let them know that we hear them, that we understand that there are bad actors in this space, and that the right partnership is one that makes the institution healthier, that actually promotes the opportunities for students, for faculty, for the institution, as opposed to one that drains them.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, except for the notion that we had to push you to say something inflammatory.
Provide an opportunity.
I'm surprised it took so long. But no, I think that it's totally right, and that's why we, at Guild, we look at it as a matchmaking process, right? Like it's I said at the very beginning, the type of institution that we're looking for institutions that pride themselves and can demonstrate excellence at serving the working adult learner. If that's not part of your mission, that's cool. You're not you're not the right partner for us, right? And we're very clear about the way that we operate and kind of what we do. And if the faculty push back on that, if they're not aligned, if they think that serving an employee at Chipotle is beneath them, if they think that providing economic opportunity for somebody at Walmart is beneath them, so be it. We're not the right partners, right? And so I think what you say is exactly right, which is that these partnerships do have to be fair. They have to be win-win. You have to be creating value for both sides, economic value, educational value for both sides. And so it is okay to look at them, as you're approaching a partnership of faculty members or administrators, look at them skeptically, because there are a lot of bad actors. If we had more time, you'd start naming them. I know that.
Time is running so short.
Listen, my faculty loves the fact that we partner now with Chipotle. I see more Chipotle rappers on my campus now than ever before in life. Everyone's trying to expense, we're recruiting. We're recruiting. Who else has a question? Yes.
Hi, my name is Julie White. I'm president of Pierce College in the Tacoma, Washington area. And thank you for the bad actors, because I've had a lot of it. It's really hard, to discern, right, the good from the bad. Another elephant is this conversation about the social good. I was in a session here earlier today with an economist from the American Enterprise Institute and folks from WGU. Good session, important session, but the emphasis was on the individual good. It was all about ROI. And, there was a comment that the social good is fine for education, but we really need to focus on the individual good. And so I think I have more of a comment than anything, which is, that's another part of the conversation that we have to expand. We are still in this neoliberal climate of, it's about the profit motive, it's about the individual. And our communities, I serve many of the same underserved communities that you talked about, our communities need us and they need these partnerships. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. And let me just say this. Scarcity mindset infects so many people. And it's not just the people who don't have enough resources, right? That selfishness is prevalent in people with tremendous resources, but they don't see the world through a big enough lens. There's enough here for everyone, right? You don't have to bankrupt society to make yourself feel good. Next question.
I think we're actually out of time. This thing's
Are we out of
beeping. I think if it keeps going, it's going to blow.
Ah. All right, well, listen, Paul and I are done. Ben's sticking around.
I'm going to be in the next panel, so I'm just going to keep talking. You guys don't need to go anywhere right now.
But thank you
so
very
much.
much. Thank you very much.